Hello, Assalamu alaikum. Good evening. Welcome to another episode of Health is Wealth. I am your host, Shabnam Riaz. So how are you spending your Saturday evening? Hope it's, you're having a great time to the beginning of the weekend. And one of those issues that we love to talk about on this program, something that is very, very important. Unfortunately, I think that as a nation, we tend to keep this issue on the back burner. It's something that's not really discussed as much as it should be, not brought so much to the forefront as it should. We're going to talk about mental health issues. This is, of course, in collaboration with the World Mental Health Day that was recently observed on the 10th of October. And the theme of that day was young people and mental health in a changing world. So what should we be doing? How can we improve our lives, our own mental health issues, the people we love, the people we care for? What do we need to do there? For that, we are very happy to have with us in our studios Professor Dr. Muwaddad Rana, who's a psychiatrist. Thank you very much for being here today.
My pleasure. Thank you
And
very much for
also, we're very welcome. And also brings back very fond memories of you being on our first program when we started this series. So that's a milestone for us as well.
I fondly remember that. It's a lovely start. And good that we return to a very important issue today.
Exactly. So right now, before we get back to our guest, we're going to show you a report on this issue.
Your friends and family or work colleagues break through the stigma surrounding mental health and start a discussion. Statistics have shown that 1 in 4 people will suffer with a mental ill health issue in any given year. This can be as high as 1 in 2 adults who are in debt. Over the past 25 years, anxiety and depression in teenagers has risen by 70%. Mental ill health covers a wide spectrum, from the worries and grief that we all experience, to severe depression or complete loss of touch with reality. Anxiety. We all experience levels of stress and anxiety, whether work pressures or family related. However, for some people, the feelings of anxiety can be prolonged and extreme, making it difficult to carry out simple, everyday tasks and can even cause panic attacks. Common signs to look out for when dealing with an anxious person include reduced concentration and memory, difficulty making decisions, become irritable and angry, and avoid certain situations. Depression. As with anxiety, most of us will experience ups and downs in our lives and during difficult times. If the low mood doesn't improve or go away, this can be a sign of depression. Someone suffering from depression can feel sad, anxious, guilty, angry, helpless, and hopeless. They may also have low self-esteem and a tendency to believe that others only see them in a negative light. Other signs to look out for are self-criticism and blame, impaired memory and concentration, neglecting responsibilities, and loss of interest in appearance and personal hygiene. Bipolar disorder. Bipolar disorder is a severe mood disorder and causes unusual fluctuations in a person's mood. People with this condition can find it hard to maintain relationships and jobs due to their extreme moods. They may lack focus or be unwilling to concentrate on what to you seems to be an important issue. People with bipolar disorder can be full of energy and talking very quickly, easily distracted, going off on unrelated tangents, lacking in energy, or feel sad, pessimistic, and hopeless. Schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is a widely misunderstood and feared mental illness. People who suffer from schizophrenia do not have dual personalities, but are rather split from reality and may have delusions about themselves or others.
Okay, hope you found that helpful. Dr. Rana, if I'd start with this question, that, according to the WHO, half of all mental illnesses begin by the age of 14. So, that is something to be quite concerned with.
Absolutely, Shabnam. Largely because of the fact that, as the title of your program goes, health is wealth. If you look at human societies, it's the adolescent, it's the young people, 14 to 20, who are the real wealth of a society. So, and they have the most energy, they've got the brightest ideas, they're full of zest and zeal, they're energized, they are redefining life and its definitions, they're discovering what is going on inside, what is going on outside, they are going through various crises of identity. There's a whole neurobiological resettling of the brain going on. There's a whole flood of hormones that they're having. They're falling in love, they're falling out of love, they're moving from schools to universities. So you can't really blame them for developing all sorts of psychiatric morbidities and issues during their adolescent years. So absolutely 50% of all psychiatric disorders do start in teens.
Huge number, and you know, as you said, because there's so much transition happening there from child to adult. That's one of the the biggest challenges that a person will go in as well in the different phases of their life. So what can we do to help our children? What should parents be on the lookout for signs of a child who's developing?
Well, there's a whole lot that needs to be done. First of all, you need to define that, there is, in fact, at a biological level, no adolescence at all. You're a child and then you're an adult.
True.
You see, for all biological reasons, a 13-year-old girl or a 14-year-old boy are men and women, But what's happening is that because of the transitions at a social level, they're not immediately granted the status of an adult.
Very true.
So you find them vulnerable, emotional, distressed, anguished, loud, aggressive, So the society tends to tone them down by giving them a label which stands between childhood and adulthood or young adulthood.
Okay.
And that is the bridge which we call the adolescence.
Right.
Which is an artificially created social phenomena. See? So the first thing that the society needs to understand and give a chance to a person who's 13, 14, 15-year-old is to start to see the reality afresh. You see, for the first 12 years of your life, most children are in a state of trance. You see, they're constantly in the awe and aura of their mother, their father, their dada and their dadi, and their nana and their nani, and the khalas and the uncles and the authority figures, and to top them all, the teachers. See?
Very true.
So your truth is being decided. Your reality is being defined by authority figures in your life.
Right.
So if you see anything at all, it's constantly challenged.
Right.
So it's for the first time in their lives that they're going to now redefine a reality for themselves.
Right.
And here, if you're not going to take them seriously, if you're going to keep treating them, as a child, well, you're going to undermine their mental health. Now look at the dilemma of a 14, 15 or 16-year-old, a young girl or a young man, or a boy, if you want to call it. When you want him to subjugate to your orders, you always call, "Tum abhi bacche ho, tum abhi chote ho." You're a child.
Yeah.
Very convenient.
Yeah.
When he asks for the keys of the car, you say, "No, but you're a child."
Yeah.
You
True.
see? But after 10 minutes or so of this whole thing, he does something silly, a child-like, and you'd say, "Itne bade ho gaye ho, abhi bhi bachchon wali harkatein kar rahe ho."
True. Exactly.
See, kind of totally confused and lost
Right.
on you and on the society. I mean, can you give me a break? Who am I really?
Yeah.
So, and that pushes him into a whole identity crisis. And the biggest question that he's busy defining during this period of time, pushed into this confusing role, is who am I? And that sets the tone for various kinds of morbidities alongside various biological factors that then come together and produce these disorders that you were talking about in the report. So one of the key things that the parents need to do is start to understand, to give them their space, start to take them seriously.
And respect them.
And stop running their lives, for God's sake,
Yeah, exactly.
And I think you've used a beautiful word. And one of the key themes in that particular phase of our lives is self-esteem.
Yeah.
You see? So your self-esteem is constantly challenged. You have these acne eruptions on your face. Your whole anatomy is changing. You know, your timings of day and night are all over the place. You see, you're trying to sneak out of your house with your friends when you're being subjugated to stay back. So there's all sorts of
So
chaos.
many, yeah,
you see? And your
contradictions.
self-esteem is
Right.
really high up there to be kicked any time. And you're carrying a very fragile ego.
Oh, yeah.
You see? And that is the point that this particular word that you just used, respect. That if you start to show some degree of respect, you would provide a certain degree of respite to this
Yeah.
young man or
Because
young girl at that point in time.
True, exactly, because actually what you're doing is you're giving them a certain amount of confidence. When you're respecting their decision, whether good or bad,
Yeah.
they have to learn. In the end, they have to learn through mistakes as well.
Yeah, I mean, you see, the whole issue with parenting an adolescent is to say, okay, for all these years of my life, I've been as a father or as a mother, been telling you, this is what you ought to do, this is what you ought not do. From here on, I'm going to provide you a counsel. I'm going to give you an advice when you seek one.
Ah,
See?
so you see, this is a
So
very
I'm
important
available.
point.
So you go and experiment, go and try out things, and whenever you seek my counsel, because I've been going through these phases of my life, like you.
Right.
So if you want to come back to me, absolutely available. Yours truly, sir. But I'm not going to now, shove various kinds of messages down your throat because I am senior than you. And the worst thing that an adolescent wants to listen to you is, "Hamare zamane mein ye nahi hota tha."
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Oh, God,
that's
that is
cliched.
so important.
Yeah,
Dr. Rana, I
it's
just want to make that,
cliched, yes.
that point, emphasis in front of the camera right now. What Dr. Rana has said right now is so important. So many of us, we live in the past, and we do this with our children. We're guilty of this. We say to them, we never did that when we were a child.
Well, they didn't allow you to do it.
So in other words, you're sort of saying, okay, there's a bit of resentment here
You
that
see,
I'm dealing
and
with.
Let me just quote to you a very, very profound statement about adolescence, which comes from nobody but the greatest of all sages, Hazrat Ali alayhi salam. And he said this beautifully, the issue that we're discussing. He said, don't give examples to your young ones of a time that they have not seen, about a time that you have not seen.
So true.
See, so that actually sets the whole tone of how to interact and deal with your adolescents. If you provide a parallel counsel, easily accessible and available,
They will
See?
come to you.
yeah, they would come to you because they know this man is going to only state an experience.
Right.
And would therefore draw a parallel. See, okay, if I was in this situation, with all my knowledge and understanding of life, this is what I will do.
And you're actually talking about a bridge
Yeah.
between the generation gaps,
and
aren't
the
you?
moment you start to draw this parallel for them, they start to respect you and love you for it.
That's so true.
And many a times they would not like to experiment stuff. See,
Yeah.
so you do not have to actually fall in a as they say, cliched statement to actually discover its depth. You can actually ask people how deep it is, or actually just read the board outside saying this well is this deep.
Right.
So you want to, but you start to experiment mostly because of the fact that nobody is letting you experiment, and everybody is trying to, give these all, negative statements about ये नहीं करना चाहिए, वो नहीं, ये हल्ला हो गया, ऐसे हो जाएगा, So scaring them out of life's challenges is the last thing that an adolescent would ever pay heed to.
Right.
Because of the fact that he has so much energy,
Right.
he actually feels that he's the Alexander, and the world actually revolves around him,
Right.
and therefore he can, he can take on the Himalayas if he wants to,
Right.
and therefore he doesn't really give a damn about these
Rules and everything.
these
yeah.
rules and also these fearful scenarios that you try to create him.
Right.
More fearful scenarios you create for him or her, more he or she is inclined to actually do it and see if it is really that fearful.
Right.
You know.
That's absolutely true. And that is such sound advice for people who are watching the program right now to understand that, what Dr. Rana is saying is give your children space and respect, and also the perception. Try and connect with them in their time zone, in their day and age. That's so important.
Yeah.
Okay, I had lots
And
of...
just a word of caution for my from amongst the viewers, the mothers of teenagers. You know, they seem to wear a label of 007, the female version. You see, they're constantly spying on their adolescents, eavesdropping on them. Bathroom में इतनी देर क्यों लगा रहा है? Stuff, and
Who
what
are you
is he
talking on the
doing
phone
at
with?
3 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
with his mobile on,
Yeah.
and they constantly, the moment he's left the room and has left his mobile here, they're going to immediately try and find out what is going on his mobile,
Right.
and tap on his friends, and they're constantly playing, a cat and mouse
Right,
with them,
right.
and you know that who wins in a cat and mouse
Yeah.
game? It's always the mouse. He's just too smart, So he's going to outsmart you. He's going to create situations and scenarios where you will have an explanation.
And there's also going to
for
be that
everything.
distrust
Yeah.
between
and then,
them.
Yeah. At the end of the
Yeah.
day, he's going to sort of have no respect for you for this particular style of parenting.
So all those worried mums out there, there's advice from the expert.
Cool
So
it.
calm
Cool
down.
it. Yeah,
calm down. It's only
Yeah.
going to be counterproductive.
Yeah.
Okay, I had lots of questions that I had
Yeah.
written
Yeah,
down,
sure,
right?
please.
But I'm thinking that, if you think about things according to our social setup, because that makes a huge difference to when we're talking about mental health, globally, and then when we come back home and we think of our typical family unit. Now, what we see usually is that, a child, like I'll tell you this, many families have, the strict parenting approach, where one of the parents will be, whether it's the mother or the father, sometimes it's the father, sometimes it's the mother, usually it's the father, whatever. And there is a sort of a threat, that, okay, if you do this, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. Now, two sort of questions I have put to you right now. For many girls, it's like, well, you can't do this. You're only going to be able to do this once you get married and you go to your husband's home, okay? So she's carrying this thing with her. And then after marriage, there's a whole different scenario where, again, you have the parenting for a young son and daughter-in-law, or son-in-law and daughter, or whatever. Tell us about that. How should elders define their...
Well, you see, you and I know that we're just playing a game with them. It's that we are so unsure about our values, and we are so confused about our do's and don'ts of life that we do not really want to outrightly say, you can't do this.
Right.
See? Okay, we do not do this in this family. See?
Yeah.
You yourself actually are guilty of attempting to do most of that stuff yourself behind closed doors that you are stopping your son and daughter from doing. So it is out of that, for to use a better word, a bit of a manafkat on the part of parents that they do this. You need to first of all be very clear about the values, the limits of the family. And those values and limits that you have drawn have to be practiced by you, first of all, as parents.
Before anyone is going to take you seriously.
Yes. And then, of course, also have a consensus on the values between the mother and the father. Because what is going to happen mostly if you lack that consensus, and if you really are not practicing any of those values and those do's and don'ts that you are preaching to your son and daughter, is that they're going to exploit one of the parents. They're going to pitch one against the other and get away with murders, literally. So it's usually the mother who plays the good cop.
The good cop, yeah.
And the father the bad cop.
Yeah.
So she says, "Acha, abba baar gaye, go do it." And sometimes the father wants to catch up,
On the popularity
on the popularity scale. And he comes back on a Sunday. Okay, this is Sunday, and yes, you can do this. I'm at home.
Get out of jail card.
You're creating an utter chaos in the mind of a young mind. Utter chaos. A father saying one thing, mother saying another, finds them and their friends and other family members exactly the same. And then, of course, the age-old divide between girls can't do this.
Yeah.
And boys
Boys
can't
will
do
be
this.
boys.
And boys can do this, the girls. what are you talking about? I mean, you're living in 2018 and trying to create these artificial divisions which are gender biased.
True.
Around the world, people are catching up with newer gender roles. We know that a country like Pakistan cannot be productive with those 50% girls being excluded. Gone are those days.
Yeah.
See, this is the Naya Pakistan, as we call it, the new Pakistan. We need everybody to contribute towards it.
Yes.
And therefore, you're going to have a standard of morality that's practical,
Yeah.
that's as much for girls as much as for boys. And therefore, if you're going to launch that
Yeah.
to a family member who knows that his own brothers, sisters, elders, father,
Abide to
mother
that.
are abiding by those
Yes.
norms, then you can just put your foot down and say, okay,
Yeah.
excuse me, this is not done in our home.
Yeah.
Full stop.
Because the child will then see
Yeah.
that the parent is making sense.
Yes.
Because he can see, he or she can see.
it, it's all around him.
Yeah,
You see?
true.
And there are not many things in life that you need to put your foot down on that. There are very, very few things actually. And for all else, you say, okay, this is what my recommendations are. See? And you can take my recommendation. If you want to go around finding it out through your own mistakes, be my guest. And lo and behold, they would know, right, you know, everybody as a human being wants to test waters. And the moment they put their left foot into the cold water, they know the temperature and they
Yeah.
immediately withdraw.
Yeah.
See?
And also there's a psychology behind
Yeah.
somebody telling you not to do something.
Yeah.
So because then
it entices you.
you just have to
Absolutely.
do that.
Yeah. We often entice them into doing things. आपने वो film बिल्कुल नहीं देखनी.
Right.
You know, so don't see 50 Shades of Grey. And you've already given him the name to see this night.
Exactly,
So,
exactly.
So those are the things that we need to be very careful about.
Right. And I also loved, you know, the part that you said about the importance of boys and girls having the same parenting.
Absolutely.
Because every successful girl you ever talk to will tell you that it started at home,
Yeah.
with her parents believing in her, or the grandparents believing in her. And it was the family network that told her, you're the one that can
Yes.
do everything.
And Shabnam, I can tell you as a mental health professional who deals with adolescents a lot, I see several of them every day. I am so sure that if you trust your adolescents and if you feed them with halal rozi, as you call it, you know, and if you are very clear about your do's and don'ts and value systems in a particular home, they will never let you down. I think just give them a chance. They will not let you down. And I can speak that even more strongly for girls than boys. You may call me biased, gender biased, in a negative or a positive sense, whatever you want to. Usually girls are much stronger in adhering to the norms of their families.
True.
Boys, of course, myself included, we try to, you know, test waters a little far too frequently than girls.
Right.
But, you know, they don't really let you down, provided you know, you are there to tell them very clearly, okay,
Yeah.
this is what I do not believe in.
Right.
And this does not happen in this
Right.
household.
Okay, yep, that's absolutely such important advice there. Okay, now we're talking about young people as well and their mental health, and we're talking about the social scenario as well that we have in our lifestyles. Let's talk about, you know, in-laws and that sort of complex structure that we have going on in our households as well. Media isn't helping, by the way, with the way they are depicting the scenario.
And the movies aren't either.
Yeah.
मैं पंजाब नहीं जाऊंगी.
Yeah, exactly. And the dramas that you see, the
Yeah.
scheming going on. Okay, so what advice do you have to offer for warring members of the family, whether it's the mother-in-law, the daughter-in-law, the son, or the whatever? What advice do you have?
Let me first of all confess that, you know, things are improving. I see more and more liberated mothers-in-law today than monsters-in-law as in yesteryears.
Good.
So I think things are improving. I think the most important message is to try and understand the fact that this new couple
Yeah.
who is about to start their life
Absolutely.
need to start to see this as a launching pad of life where everybody is right behind them.
True.
You see? And when we say right behind them, I mean the girl's family, the boy's family, and their relationship with each other.
So
See,
true.
if you're going to just give them this sense of hope and fulfillment, saying that, you know, our two families are truly, you know, coherent and easy and comfortable with each other, it gives such a booster to this new couple. So the same, you know, good sense that prevails and these niceties that are shared during the engagement years. You know, the mother-in-law and the father-in-law of one and the other are all friends, and milk and honey being poured on each other every day. And suddenly, from the wedding day onwards, everything seems to change.
So what's going on?
उन्होंने तो हमें मिठाई नहीं भेजी, उन्होंने तो हमें कपड़े अच्छे नहीं दिए. You know, these little
Petty
minor
issues.
petty issues which are brought up. And then what happens is that the mother, you know, the boy's mother, is saying all this to the son,
daughter-in-law.
no, to the son, and pitching him against his own wife, and vice versa. So the mother of the daughter starts to pitch her own daughter against the boy. And this is a
Disastrous.
ongoing disaster. You see, what happens then is that the girl starts to see her own husband with the eyes of the mother, her own mother, how she saw her in-laws and her husband.
Oh dear.
I hope I'm not confusing the things here.
Yeah.
But for people to understand that you need to give this couple a chance to discover each other purely through their own interaction, or rather than making up their minds about each other.
And the poor things don't get a chance because
don't
there's
get a
so much
chance.
emotional baggage coming from, as you very rightly described, the mothers.
Look at this girl, a modern day girl, who was moved after living for 20 years, for example, which is usually the average age on which girls get married in Pakistan, 20, 21, 22. So she has lived in this one household for 20, 22 years, literally repotted as a plant. So here's this 22-year-old plant taken out and put into another pot.
Yeah.
Now, even if it is a plant, of course the girl is not a plant, but you know, even if it is a plant, it's going to take some time to take roots there. It takes some time to adjust to the new humidity, the new sunshine level, the new water level,
the soil.
The new soil. So it is going to take some time. So give the poor thing a chance. See, and during that period of time, if she starts to you know, catch roots, she's going to bear a lot of fruits. But if you're going to be so hostile towards her during this days of repotting, as I'm calling it,
I know, I love the metaphor.
It will just shrivel. It is going to just become paler and paler, and then, you know, just shrivel off.
What advice do you have for our viewers who are sitting at home and watching this program, and they know that this is going on in their house, or they know somebody that you know? What would you like to say to them?
You see, first of all, I think the whole word is empathy. See, one of the key, resilient, emotionally stable, stabilizing word for human relationships and mental health is empathy. Just try and be that person. Just imagine yourself in a new household, you know. Just if you're a daughter-in-law, imagine yourself as coming into a household which has its own norms and values and things and systems in place. And you have come in and you want to change the entire thing. It takes some time for them to adjust to your new ideas. You must bring the change, but make it gradual, slow. You don't have to challenge all the norms straight away. So if you start to empathize with that mother-in-law, if you start to empathize with that daughter-in-law, and please also empathize with this poor son-in-law.
Who's the sandwich in between, isn't he? Because he's listening to the mother and the...
और तुम्हारी बहू ने, तुम्हारी बीवी ने मुझसे ये कहा.
That poor guy.
You see, if these two women can actually start to interact with each other and start to become partners, you know, and hold each other's hand, they can actually change the entire situation in this household, because they can understand each other much better. I'm sure it is so much easier for you to understand the mind of another girl than to understand the mind of another boy.
Yes.
See? So it's easier for genders to empathize with each other. See? Because they've been through those situations. So I think empathy is the word which can save relationships in a household.
And you know, one thing I thought is really important that you mentioned, it's, you know, that the mother-in-law may have had a bad time in her past when she was a daughter-in-law, so she's reliving because she hasn't addressed those issues.
Yeah, she's just dragging her own past into this current
and
reality.
she's putting herself there.
Which is irrelevant.
Yeah.
You see, as the Hazrat Ali call that I was just talking about, this is irrelevant. It's your experience. Okay, we respect that time of yours, and you had a difficult ride at that point in time. But it's a whole new ball game. It's a new word that you're dealing with. If you're going to drag in this particular couple has no chance. And I can tell you, there are very serious morbidities that occur on account of these maladjustments, ranging from depression, very severe anxiety, a disorder which is most ill understood in adolescents and is often not treated, and that is obsessive compulsive disorder, where all sorts of weird thoughts and ideas about cleanliness of things and trying to wash yourself, your dirt,
repeating the same movements.
Lady Macbeth's hand, phenomena. And the onset of schizophrenia, bipolar disorders during this period of time.
Right.
Then another very important issue that's very common amongst adolescents is the issue of drug abuse.
Oh, very.
And alcoholism.
Yeah.
So, but why would an adolescent use a tranquilizer? Why would he use a stimulant? Why would he use hash? Why would he use the crystal, the meth, and so on and so forth, and the other stimulants and common drugs of abuse in the street? Largely because of the fact they are carrying such burden of emotional distress in their heads.
From home?
Yeah, from their homes, from their schools, from their academics, from the fears of failure.
They're under huge pressure.
Yeah, and what's happening? Everybody is telling them you're not getting good grades, you're not performing very well, do more.
Do more.
Do more.
And it's never enough.
And it's never enough. पढ़ लिया करो किसी वक्त तो हर वक्त मोबाइल के साथ खेलते रहते हो. You are giving them so much of pain and anguish that why would they take a painkiller if you wouldn't give them a pain? See? So for emotional pain that you are generating in the lives of adolescents, they're bound to find something which is called a drug of abuse, because cannabis, what is cannabis? What is hashish? What is opiate? They're all emotional painkillers. They actually numb you.
Right.
So if I'm going to have a headache, I am going to take a paracetamol.
Right.
So try and understand your role, even in the use, experimental so-called use of drugs, of abuse and alcohol amongst adolescents.
That's so important, to go to the root of the problem rather than just preaching and saying, okay, this is, you're talking about the actual essence of why a child would be lured towards that direction.
You need to find out. And how we manage drug abuse? तुम्हें नहीं पता इसका कितना बड़ा गुनाह है, तुम्हें शर्म नहीं आती, तुम as I it's a very bad slang that I'm using on television, but people say durfitte mo. So here is a young adolescent, male or a female, being treated
shunned
like
and
shamed and put into shame, and constantly in an emotional turmoil and on a roller coaster, literally, every day, in and out, both in school as well as at home.
Okay, one thing I want to talk about right now is that, the sort of comments that you used are things that are prevalent in our society. I want to talk about people who use the sort of the taunting and the, that method of communication, whether it's a child or the husband or the wife or people just in the family, and the sort of, tane and whatever, that thing.
It's bullying, actually. Let me just call it bullying. Yeah. It's emotional bullying.
Yeah.
You see, and we talk of electronic bullying these days, and e-bullying and internet-based and social media-based bullying and bullying at school. But we completely forget about bullying that takes place in relationships on a regular basis.
Right.
You see, you are exploitative sometimes. You're undermining the individual's integrity and authority as a human being and his self-respect. This is as much bullying because it's destructive, it's full of pain and anguish for you, and it leaves permanent scars and traumas on people. I can tell you, I see more psychological trauma coming out of schools, out of classrooms, about the principals and the teachers dealing with the students in the school, in the name of academic proficiency, enhanced grades, and so on and so forth. So they're traumatized literally at a psychological level, in their school days at the hands of an institution where you had sent them to actually become academicians and philosophers and doctors and engineers in the years to come. They are now, have become, several of them have become places where you send your children to get bullied by the, you know, boys and
Anyone
girls
in authority as well?
in authority,
Yeah.
and of course their teachers and authorities in the school. So here we were talking about the home, and now we go to school, and it's the same thing.
And for
going
some,
on.
it might be a double whammy because that's
Yeah.
happening at
and
home.
once this trauma, psychological trauma or adverse childhood experience has happened, it is not going to go away. It's going to replay itself, what we call
throughout
the
life.
post-traumatic stress disorder.
Right. We will get back to this.
Yes.
It's very, very important and having a fantastic conversation right now. Don't change the channel. Welcome back to the programme. Thanks for staying with us. We're having a fantastic, episode today where we're talking about World Mental Health Day, the backdrop to that, where the theme was young people and mental health in changing world. Dr. Murad, you've been, amazing in putting forth so many things that, escape a person's attention, especially when you are used to a certain way of growing up or a certain social fabric inside the house as well.
Absolutely.
So many things escape your notice, and we don't really realize how we may be contributing to damaging mental health and causing an onset of mental illness, especially in adolescents and young children, as you very well described. Now, I've always wanted to know this. Is there, a reason for certain nations around the world being more emotional than the others? And if so, are we an emotionally charged nation? How do we work on our emotional quotient?
It's both myth and a reality.
Okay.
In fact, in temperate regions, people are more expressive about their emotions. In these areas around Mediterranean, the old ancient Mesopotamia, India, the Malayas, and so on and so forth, the Mexicans, and further north and south of that in South America and Africa. So we are, the temperate part of the word, we are temperamental.
Temperamental.
And we are loud. But then we also have a lot of emotions stirred up, constantly available. And that's both an advantage and a disadvantage. You see, in many ways we're talking about water, for example.
Yeah.
These days. Even just prior to your program, we talked about the dam fund and people contributing towards the dam fund and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Emotions in many ways are like that water. If you do not tap it, if you do not put it in order, in some kind of a
Flow.
controlled state, it's going to flood you.
True,
See,
absolutely.
or you will go into a complete drought. See, if you do not manage your water properly. So the same is true of your emotions. If you know how to manage your emotions, you will be called an emotionally literate nation. You would be known as an emotionally literate society. You'd be known as an emotionally literate individual. So what we're talking about is not absence of emotions or emotions being discarded or too much of emotions is not good. It's not an issue of good and bad. It's your ability as an individual, as a society, and as a nation, and for that matter, the world,
How you
to
handle it.
know how to handle your emotions.
Are we all the same emotionally charged? I mean, every person is different. Is it true that when we say
See, I
some people are
think
more
in
emotional than others?
In terms of the range of emotions available to human beings, that is essentially genetic.
Okay.
And we're all born with the same, let's say, armamentarium available to us in terms of emotions. But the way we handle it the kind of emotions that we acquire or learn from each other are the emotions that we need to do something about. And that is where nations, states, societies and individuals vary a great degree. And within a home, you can have people who you would find as cold and a little distant with very little emotionality to somebody who's loud and expressive and a bit histrionic in terms of demonstration of his or her emotions. So between that range, you have various other shades of people expressing themselves.
Right.
What we need to talk about actually in terms of mental health is that if you can handle emotions through rationality, objectivity, prudence about your emotions, and always link up your emotions to some degree of evidence.
Okay.
You see?
Right.
Rather than hearsay many a times,
Right.
or a simple gesture that you could have easily misunderstood,
Very true.
or a misread notion, a misconceived perception, see, and start to express and pour out all your emotions in response to that stimulus. You see, what we lack therefore in terms of emotional expression is that ability to delay our responses.
That is it, exactly. It seems like everybody is ready to fly off the handle.
Yes, absolutely, that's the term, flying off the handle. And it seems when you see a lot of people on the road, I get a feeling they're like a boil which is about to rupture.
True.
You see, and the whole pus is going to start to come out. Everybody's so angry, aggressive, jealous, hostile, and lustful, full of vengeance, paranoia.
Seems like everybody hates each other when they're driving.
Which is not the case. It's just that you get worked up and then you don't really know what to do with these
and it's
emotions.
the other frustrations that are actually manifesting themselves out while you're on the road.
Actually, you see, what is happening is most of the time we tend to have the same way as the water flows down rather than upstream. Similarly, emotions also flow from, you see, if I, for example, accumulated a lot of negative feelings from somebody higher up in the authority ladder, I'm going to let it flow to someone who's junior and weaker than me.
True.
See, so
Human
who gets
nature.
it the most in a household? The children,
Yeah.
the servants.
Oh.
See, and on the roadside, somebody who's on a bicycle or who's on the foot. You see, they're the one who's going to face the wrath the most. See,
true.
so it's that downward flow because of
Right.
which all the negative emotions are dished out
Yeah.
to somebody who's weaker. They do not really belong there, but they're moved
It's
into that
misdirected.
situation.
That anger is
I see,
misdirected.
the same issue that we were discussing earlier. I see a lot of anger and frustration and built up emotions taken out on children, young
Yeah,
children,
so
6-month-old babies.
6 months.
And 6-month-old babies, battered babies, beaten up by their own mothers
My God.
because they're taking out their frustration which they'd accumulated from the father-in-law, the mother-in-law, or the circumstances.
And they need that help.
And here's a
They need to be addressed.
a vulnerable individual. At the same time, and this needs to go on, I think, for people to understand. Many a times, another vulnerable set of people in the household are older people. And sometimes, since they tend to forget what is happening, they are dementing, they are confused. So I've seen several scar marks and wounds on the backs of older people who are beaten up
That is
by
so
the family members.
tragic. That is so
You see,
tragic.
so tragic. But,
So tragic.
you know,
but then these
that
are
is
all part
realities.
of reality. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. There's so much more I wanted to talk to you about. But, inshallah, another program, and there'll be a whole set of issues that we can discuss. And, thank you so much for being on the show again, and fantastic advice for everyone.
Thank you very much, Shabnam. Pleasure talking to you.
Okay, and with that, we come to the end of today's program. I know I, for one, learnt so much, and the things that are happening in life, that the daily sort of events that we're not really noticing or picking up on, they are all adding up. So how do you want to live your life? This is the decision that you're going to make for yourself. It has to be a conscious decision. So, be mindful of what's happening around and improve your mental health. It's very, very important. So until next week, stay happy, stay healthy. Bye-bye.